Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last upload, apologies for that. Chronologically, today is the 29th of December. I've had a bit of time during the festive period to do a bit of work on the car and also on various other things car related that I've got going on, and enjoying some family time, so my double chin is back. And what is also back behind me is our soda blasted shell. Now there's a lot of comments and concerns on previous videos and forums, Facebook and whatnot about the soda blasting on the shell. So today I was going to do like a look over on the shell, show you what it looks like now that we've stripped off most of the paint and the gel coat on it, where we can see like the underneath of where we knew there was damage before, and also some areas that it's highlighted that we couldn't see before the paint and the gel coat came off. One thing I would have to say with soda blasting, it was a local company, Soda Blast Scotland, that I had do the work on the shell. I could have bought the equipment and tried it myself, but didn't really want to risk it. Soda blasting as a process is your preferred method for removing paint from fiberglass. I think everyone's heard of Spider. If you send your car to Spider for a back to gel coat respray, they use soda blasting to remove the paint as well. As I understand, it's the first step of the process. It's a very soft process. It's not anything like as damaging as grit blasting or glass blasting, which we used on the chassis. So we'll look over the shell and see how the finish has come up. Probably the most obvious thing to note, first and foremost, that the blasting has revealed. It's very easy to see where the body augmentations were carried out by Vegan Tune, with the modifications to the front valance, to the front and rear arches, and also to the C-pillars. I don't know what this particular filler is. I think it's some fashion of cellulose filler that's been used to smooth the profile, but that clearly shows the main areas they worked on the car. So obviously there's the front valance and the reworked side lights and indicators, and it's an interesting texture. Admittedly the soda blast may have contributed some to it, but you can see it's the texture that we're dealing with there. I've not stripped any more off. I want to let the bodywork guys have a look at it and see what they think. But that's coated all around the front of the car, and also up and over the arches. And this is all the area that had the pinhole blistering coming up on it, because there was water underneath the gel coat in that area, so we needed to get that refreshed. Up where they don't have this sort of filler substance on it, you can see the fiberglass there. Back to glass, quite a nice smooth finish. I don't need to worry about getting any fiberglass shards in my hand touching it. In the sort of door area, the door recess, see there's still a bit of the gel coat left under there. Sorry for the noise in the background, it is Scotland in winter, so we've got about 100-mile-an-hour winds outside. Here's the bobbin recess for the door hinges. You've got one up the top as well. And again, you can see all along here, so back to glass. There are some still quite thick bits of gel on there. But in terms of the labour saving, doing it this way as opposed to doing it by hand, you know what I mean? Okay, I wasn't doing it, the car was away for a while, but they've done the entire outside of the car, the engine bay, the underside and the inside, including the boot recess. If I was to do that by hand, you're talking quite literally years of work. Looking into the engine bay, you can see there's still some bits of sealer material left in there. So I think it's not a violent process, soda blasting. So things like that have still remained in, but the engine bay now looking a lot clearer. And the main benefit to this, and the reason we wanted to do it, was you can much more clearly see the areas of damage. So I knew that there was a problem with the fiberglass here around where the chassis turret comes up and in. So the back of the chassis turret has popped through the fiberglass there, so we'll need to get that repaired. And there's also a dodgy area there. So that shows us the full extent of the damage. Moving on to look at the more interior areas of the car, there was the gap in the fiberglass on top of the dashboard. I knew about that, so the blasting has just kind of shown us the full extent of that, so we can now readdress that. On the floor, this is one I didn't know about, and this is why we really had to remove all the coating from the car. So there's an area of the fiberglass here is cracked, so we need to repair that was very well hidden by the black paint type stuff that was inside the car. Previously you really couldn't see that, so that's a good one that's shown us. Moving towards the back of the car, you've got again this cellulose style coating on the rear arches where they've put the wider arch on and then faired that in all the way up to the back of the car. The boot looked quite grotty originally, so that's, you know, a massive improvement. Seeing this, so that'll all be repainted. There is a wee bit of glass work needing done in here. There was a section of the floor that had a little bit of damage. That's cleared out all the dodgy fiberglass that was in there, and that's actually cleaned up really quite nicely. Got a brilliantly smooth finish on that, so not actually too much terrible work needing done in there. This is the section that we're looking at stiffening up. There is a stiffening brace that goes across, links the two hinges with a sort of C channel, but I still think it'd be a good idea to just get a fiberglass section on the underside up in there and just do it, because you can see where the gel coat has come off, the daylight coming through it. It's very, very thin glass on that section. One of the other design changes on the car, the fairing in of the C pillar, you can see it on this side, you can't, B pillar rather, you can see it on this side, you can't so much see it on the other side. But this is where on the S4 fixed head, there's normally a chrome grille here, chrome vent. That's been removed and smoothed in. Up on the top, you can see where the obviously where the sunroof was fitted and where the securing holes for them were. So I'm going to do a bit of glass work on that to stiffen it up, because there's really not a lot of thickness to that panel, and I know that adding glass adds weight, but it'd be better to give it that bit of rigidity around the sunroof, you know, where it can actually open up into the car. Inside the car, you can see up inside the dash, very thin glass in those sections from the amount of light coming through, where there isn't any gel coat on the back. One thing I do note, there's been a lot of exhaust heat clearly arriving at the tunnel, so we'll probably look at heat management on the manifolds, and also once the engine bay is repainted, etc., I'll probably look at some heat film in that area as well. Getting the car up in the air a little bit, and we're looking inside the passenger wheel arch here, so you notice how thin the glass actually is when you get the gel coat off, and you can see how much difference the light behind it makes. There's also quite a lot of areas where you've got like these little small holes around the arch, and that's from mounting P-clips for wiring along there. And then further down here is holes where they had wiring relays mounted in the engine bay, and the screws came through into the arch. There's also these ones down here where there's actually bolts with washers on the back of them coming through, but not in too terrible condition. A thing that I do notice is, for example here, we knew the fiberglass here was bad. When the roll cage gets put in on the Elan, the roll cage tube runs up the sill. So there's a tube inserted into the sill, and then they cut the glass out here to put it in and then re-glass over it. So what you can see is that wasn't glassed up properly in the first place, and the soda blasting has really exposed the extent of the bad glass. Looking down the tunnel, that's come up really nicely. There is that section where the heat has really got into the glass. We'll need to work on heat management in that area. There's also the section up here where we're going to need to do a little bit of fiberglass reinforcement, but nothing too terrible looking. In the driver's front wheel arch, that's that section of glass that I was talking about, where the front turret, that part of the chassis, has basically just been hit on the fiberglass. And like I said, this is actually very thin glass, and when you look at it from the inside, you can see more clearly where that's broken through. So we'll look at getting that fixed. But with all the paint and the gel and all the other coatings off, we can see the full extent of the repair that's needed. Looking inside the nose cone, extensive glass reworking on that when the valance was reworked. and of course the area at the front where there's been a little bit of damage. And taking all the coating off has really shown us the full extent of that. So you have your, I guess, some fashion of cellulose filler that Vegan Tune have used, and then you have this dirty great lump of Halford's Catty that some body shop after the fact is stuck in there. So we'll need to look at getting that fixed properly. Around the rear corner on the driver's side is one of the worse off areas on the Bodyshell. So looking at some of the things that's highlighted here, there is this section where the glass has gone through, and there's also this section in the corner. But it's only fair to mention that things like that have been highlighted by the blasting, but in the same style as when an MOT tester chaps the sill of your car with a screwdriver. In fact, there's another bit there where it's gone quite deep into the glass. Yeah, similar to when an MOT tester, you know, chaps the sill with a screwdriver and it goes through. That wouldn't go through unless the glass was already ratty in that area. There was like inclusions, there was moisture in the glass, air in the glass, you know, that type of thing. So it's highlighted those additional problems, which we can now fix, you know, rather than them being hidden by the gel.